Coming to you from the greatest city in the world, this is the #1 showbiz podcast. It's Talk for Two. Here's your host, Matt Bailey.
Thank you, Gary, and thank you to our season sponsors, Axtel Expressions and the Tangent Bound Network. Please go check them out, tangentboundnetwork.com, Axtel Expressions, axtel.com. Our guest today is a personal favorite of mine, bluegrass singer, songwriter, mandolin, and guitar player. I'm sure there's other instruments in there. Dan Tyminski joins us. You know Tyminski as a member of Alison, Krauss, and Union Station. You also heard his vocals on the Cohen Brothers 2000 film, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? He dubbed in for the lead, George Clooney. Starting on May 6th and running through this weekend, Dan has concert dates in our region with fellow bluegrass artist Ronnie Bowman. He'll be in Albany, New York on Friday, Chatham, New Jersey on Saturday, and all the way down to Baltimore, Maryland on Sunday. Get your tickets by clicking below. You'll be redirected to the dantyminski.com touring page. The 14-time Grammy winner discussed his career beginnings, why Alison Krauss insists that Union Station be all about the band, and why he loves that the acclaimed soundtrack from the aforementioned Cohen Brothers film is still performing well today. Here now to tell us how his daughter talked him into recording with Swedish DJ Aviici, our interview with Dan Tyminski. All right, Dan Tyminski, welcome to Talk for Two. How are you today, sir?
Oh, I'm doing fine. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I want to begin at the beginning. I know this is brought up in almost every interview that you do, but the most surprising thing to learn about you is that you grew up in Vermont, a bluegrass artist, and you grew up in Vermont. And it was your parents, I believe, right, that introduced you to the music?
Oh, I absolutely have to credit my parents. They were big music fans, and they would drive probably a 2 or 3 hour radius we had, that if there was, any live music anywhere that would ever come through, they would take me to go hear it. So I was exposed to a whole bunch of bluegrass music, even though I'm not from necessarily a bluegrass hotbed. There was something going on every week that I got to see up close and personal.
That's really cool. What do you think drew them to the music? I'm curious. Were they Southern? Were they from an area where it was more common? That kind of music?
No, to them it was just country music. They grew up listening to the Grand Ole Opry,
mm-hmm.
and and Bill Monroe, and then old time country music. And I think it was just what was accessible to them. They were just going to hear country music. Ended up being a lot of bluegrass festivals, though.
Yeah, it's really cool. And I'm always curious because I love what you do, and I listening to you, you'd never guess, because it's just what you do is great country music, great bluegrass. And I'm curious how you think, get your thoughts here, how you think your style of bluegrass was influenced by your northern upbringing as opposed to the music from the southern regions.
Well, I think it's kind of similar with all musics in that, depending on what you listen to and what you take in, everything influences your music. I mean, I got to hear a lot of southern bands that would come through the bluegrass area, and I listened to a lot of the northern local bands that played every week. So I'm kind of a mix. I got to hear a little bit of both sides, but I was quite taken with a few of the southern bands that I love the picking, I love the singing. I'll go on record crediting J.D. Cohen to Mute South, though I never actually got to hear them live and in person in the configuration that drew me to the music. They did a record in 1975 that changed me. I think I was 12 years old when I heard the record, and when I heard them play, I think the band consisted of J.D. Crowe, Ricky Skaggs, Tony Rice, Jerry Douglas, and Bobby Sloan. And that configuration of players just moved me so much that I never looked back. That's just, I chased it stuff and probably still chasing it.
Yeah. And now you play with Jerry Douglas as a part of Union Station. That must be a thrill to work with somebody.
Jerry is now a part of the band that I'm in.
Yeah.
And now a comrade, but I'm still a big fan. His playing is just it's genius, and he introduced a style to that instrument and a way of making it, fit in with music that before him no one had done. He's an innovator on the dobro guitar, and it's still a thrill to get to play with him.
Anyway, let's continue. You talk about innovation, and you're talking to one of the biggest country music fans in the world right here. I mean, I love all the genres, even, from bluegrass to even some of the what they call the bro country today. But I'm curious, bluegrass especially, it gets this rap that I'm not comfortable with about how all the songs kind of sound the same. And I don't like that, but it makes me curious if there is any truth to that. What excites you about, what are the differences you look for when you're working on a song? What gets you excited to write something different?
Well, I think when you're talking about bluegrass music and how it sounds, and when people refer to bluegrass as a lot of it sounding the same, I could see where there is some truth to that, and that there are so many bands that still pay honor to the traditional original songs, that if you go to a festival or if you go to a concert, there's a very good chance you're going to hear the same songs that most bands have been playing for decades now.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see people might say that, but when you consider, individually, the people that play their instruments and how they work together, I mean, it always sounds fresh to me.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
it always
absolutely.
has energy. There's an energy in playing and reacting to the other people that you're playing with that does it for me. I guess there's a I've heard people compare it to jazz, and though it's not necessarily that easy just to say, okay, listen, this sounds like jazz. It's not that it sounds like jazz. It's that it's in the same type of spirit, in that when you hear something and you react to it,
Mm-hmm.
you're playing something new. All right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And one of the things I love about you is, I mean, you're a great player, but I love your voice. I think your voice is, you hear Dan Tyminski, you hear your voice and immediately you know it's you. And I'm curious how your voice, this be a weird question, interpret it however you want, how your voice developed. Because again, going back to you being Northern, I couldn't tell that you weren't from the South just because of the way that you sing. I mean, what's the thought there with how your voice developed in regards to your vocals?
Well, there's probably a couple reasons. I mean, first and foremost, I'm a singer out of necessity. As a young person, though I did start singing when I was real young, I have always really leaned toward the playing side. And anytime that I found myself singing, it was just something that I leaned on that allowed me the opportunity to get to play. So I'm a singer kind of by necessity. But the people that I listen to, I'll give you a couple of reasons. I mean, the people that I listened to that really, stuck with me, how they sang, were Southern people. So they sang with a Southern accent. And I think a person just naturally mimics the stuff that they like without really thinking about it. I never really considered that I sang with a Southern accent until people told me, later on. Mm-hmm. I think if there are any other reasons, the first band that I joined when I moved to Virginia from Vermont, I played with a band called the Lonesome River Band, and I sang with a guy named Ronnie Bowman, and he had a very deep accent. And when we recorded music, he would sing, mostly the lead, and then I would have to go back and sing with him. And if you're going to be in a recording studio and you're doing sessions, and you need stuff to work, it's real important to draw out your vowel sounds the same way the person you're singing with, does. So I think that was probably the other half of the reason why, if I sound, like I have a Southern accent, I guess I was kind of just I was trained to do it without even knowing it. I love Southern singers. Some of my favorites were people like Ricky Skaggs and Larry Sparks and Tony Rice, and these are all, Kentucky and North Carolina and Virginia people. They're just what I was drawn to. That and having to sing with Southern singers, and record with Southern singers, I think just that happened in the same way that, you know, you grow up with the accent, you know, according to whatever part of the country you're from. I just happened to grow up singing with those people.
That's really cool. And you mentioned Ronnie Bowman. You're touring with him, and you have some dates up here, up east. You have a date in Albany, and you have Baltimore and New Jersey. At the time that this airs, it'll actually be this weekend that you have those dates with Ronnie. What are you looking forward to playing with him with these dates? What most excites you about coming up and doing the shows?
Oh, gosh. Ronnie Bowman is a longtime friend. He's one of the first guys that really made me really want to. I mean, I always knew I was a musician, but when I met Ronnie, I was kind of at a crossroads whether I was going to continue on or move back home and say, you know, well, I gave it a try. Mm-hmm. Singing with Ronnie was he kind of put me over the edge. He just rekindled the excitement for me, and still is one of the greatest singers / songwriters, you know, to this day. And we've maintained a good friendship for well, gosh, it's been decades now. It's going on 30 years that I've known Ronnie, and we're able to be so comfortable with each other. I mean, it's a very relaxed environment. It's not it's kind of an intimate thing. I mean, it's more like, and we've done this, you know, several times. We've done a lot of living room shows where people will hire us to come and play very small events to just select people. And when you're that comfortable with someone and your voices click and your personalities click, it's something that's just so fun to do. It's hard not to take advantage of the opportunities that come up.
Yeah, and those smaller gigs must be fun because it's like, you know, country music is telling the story, and so it's like sitting around a campfire telling a story almost. I would think.
That would be probably the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
Sure, it is. It's like a campfire setting. Very, you know, it's an intimate setting, and we have fun together. We have songs we've been doing, oh gosh, for decades, and we have some new stuff that we've both been working on, and it's neat to get to share some stage time with someone as talented as Ronnie.
Yeah, new stuff. Can we tease a new album? Is there anything in the works recording wise? I just got to ask.
Oh, there's, you know, new records are always there's always at least a mapped out blueprint. I wouldn't look for anything real soon. I know that Ronnie has always recorded throughout his career. He has new stuff and is always working on new stuff. Same thing for myself. I don't have anything that'll be out brand spanking new when we get there, but we're both writing songs and we're both looking forward to our next recordings. It's just a juggling situation to try to make enough time to get in and do it. And I know Alison, Krauss, and Union Station, we're also looking forward to recording.
Yeah.
In this year, so there will be a bunch of new stuff coming out.
And I love the mix when you're with Union Station. It's so cool, and it was reading a little bit about the band and about Alison. The relationship with the band is that Rounder would have her do an independent record just herself. For a while there, she was alternating between Union Station records and solo albums. And I love that there are songs that feature you as the vocalist and then songs that feature her as the vocalist. Was that a band decision to do that, or was that something that the label suggested? What was the process there when you guys went into the studio for the first time?
No, that's always been an Alison thing. She is an enormously selfless person when it comes to recording. She wants to feature the band when she's recording band records, and it's very important to her that the other band members get the spotlight. It's so easy to just focus on her and not even realize that it's a band record. That I think she stays conscious that she wants the spotlight to be shared.
Yeah, and that's wonderful. Now I want to switch gears entirely because I see, in addition to the dates that you have up here up north, you have, and this cracked me up, you have dates throughout across the country with the Soggy Bottom Boys. And I got to ask, even 16 years later, I Am a Man of Constant Sorrow just won't go away for you. It's like you're so associated with Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? What do you make of the success, even 16 years later, of that song and that film?
You know, it still blows me away when a song comes along like that has the type of staying power that Man of Constant Sorrow has. It's something that honestly it does not get old for me. When you see someone come up and say that you know that anything you've done has influenced them or made them want to play music or made them want to listen to music, or even better, made them want to stretch out and listen to other forms of music, other styles. It's a huge blessing, and it's really neat to think that a song like that. I mean, that song was a popular song before the movie. I mean, it had been recorded, you know, several times in every decade going back to the 40s, early 50s.
Yeah.
So it's not a new song, but within the context of the movie and how it was recorded in our version of it, it seemed to strike a chord that speaks to, you know, all age groups, all types of people, and I'm still fascinated with it, that it has the type of influence that it does, and I'm thrilled that it came along.
Yeah, and I'm curious what your conversation with the Cohen Brothers was with regard to going in and doing it, because I know they wanted to use it for The Big Lebowski, and then they decided to use it for the later project, which was of course, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? To me, do you think their intention was this love letter to this bluegrass country music of that era?
You know, it's really hard to crawl inside of the minds of the Cohens. You know, what I knew going in was the same thing that everyone knew. We were all just big Cohen Brothers fans. And when I went in, it was to do the initial auditions. There were actually a couple different songs that were on the slate that might have been a possibility. Mm-hmm. Man of Constant Sorrow being the one that ended up winning out. What I thought was interesting about that song in particular was that they said, you know, along with T-Bone Burnett.
Oh yeah.
The person had to have a visual in my mind while I was recording a song. I mean, they were adamant about being aware of where it was in the movie and what was taking place, and they said that you had just stole a chicken, you'd sold your soul to the devil, you're trying to play rock and roll, but it hasn't been invented yet, and you know if you sing into this can and you knock it out of the park, you're going to make, you know, a bunch of money, and so you're just really trying to take it over the top, and it was all the visuals in the you know, and I remember thinking, how do you sing like you just stole a ticket?
Yeah,
and it was very odd, but they had all these visuals, and made the musicians to be very aware of what was going on in the movie while they recorded that song. So whatever it was, I'm sure they had a plan, and I cannot claim that I was very aware of how they saw it, but I know how I saw it, and it was very interesting, you know, from my perspective.
And it really worked. I want to switch gears. We'll wrap up in a couple of minutes. The last thing I want to ask before we get to those final questions is about another project that kind of took the world by storm, and I'm obsessed with too, which is Hey Brother with Avicii. I'm still to this day baffled and very curious because it's worked so well how it came to be that you hooked up there with Avicii and laid down the vocals for that track.
That was something that just popped up kind of out of thin air. I remember my assistant calling me and saying that we had an offer to do a song, you know, an electronic dance mix song with this band Avicii. And when she first mentioned it to me, I honestly said, I think we should say, you know, thank you for the offer, but no thank you. It didn't make a lot of sense to me to venture out into the EDM world. And before she let it go, she said, well, would you like me to send you the track so you could give it a listen to before we pass on it? And I thought, well, of course, that couldn't hurt, you know, send the track. And when she sent me the track, while I was waiting on it, I just out of curiosity, I remember texting my daughter, who at the time I think was 19 years old, 20 years old, listening to all types of music. I asked her if she was familiar with Avicii, And she texted back immediately, said, Swedish DJ, yeah, why? And I mentioned to her that I was, thinking about, that he asked me to do a song on his record, that he was thinking about recording a song with me singing. And she was like, no way. She couldn't believe it. I was waiting for the next text, and she called back, and she was like, you've got to be kidding me. You have no idea how big he is. He's the best. He's a genius, blah, blah, blah. And she went on, and then she said something only a daughter could say. Why does he want you?
Oh, my God.
I was asking myself the same question. It was, I think, at that point that the song came in. I said, let me let you go. I want to listen to this thing. And then when I heard the song, I loved it. It was a song that had I found, I would have tried to record anyway. I thought it was a great song, and it was very suitable for the type of vocal that I do. So I think, whether it was Avicii himself, someone in his camp, whoever it was, I thought, had a very good feeling about what it was. When I did the song, I recorded that song before all the music was made. He sent me some very simple tracks. It was just a guitar. It did not have the big electronic sound. And I sang it in Nashville and sent the tracks to him, to where, later he built the rest of the music around it. And when I heard it, I was blown away. I had no idea what to expect. And it ended up being such a big song. And it gave me street cred with all my kids. I had 3 teenagers at the time, all their friends. I had new street cred that I'd never had with all the teenagers. So that was really fun to get to do.
That's really, really cool. Now, I got to let you go here in a minute, but I never let my guests escape without this final question. What is your advice to people that want to perform bluegrass and country music?
My advice to people that want to perform bluegrass and country music, oh my gosh, it's easy enough to do, but you have to. It's just like doing anything. It's like working out or anything. You have to tie your shoes. You just have to take the first step and go and do it. I always tell people in a lot of the interviews that I do, I always encourage people and urge people to go out and listen to live music. I believe that live music touches you in a way that recorded music can't. Mm-hmm. There's plenty of room for both, but live music is what inspired me, and there's no way I would be out playing myself had I not gone and experienced all the live music that I had. So I think if you wanted to go out and play music yourself, I think that's still a good thing to do. Go out and hear all the live music you can, get that influence, and then don't let anyone tell you can't do it. You just have to stick to it and say, if it's something you want to do, go and do it, and don't let anyone tell you that you can't.
All right, that is a perfect place to end this. Mr. Dan Tyminski, thank you so much. I hope everybody comes and sees you this weekend on your Northern tour dates, and I cannot wait to see what's next. As always, a big fan. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. Thank you.
Dan, you were awesome. Thank you so much for doing the show. I'll be thinking of you this weekend. I wish I could be there. It would be a treat after having seen you almost 5 years ago. So take it from me, everybody. Go see Dan's show if you can, and go to dantyminski.com for tickets. That's Dan, Tyminski. dantyminski.com. That's it for us today. Remember, we have another episode this week. Thank you again to our season sponsors, Axtel Expressions and the Tangent Bound Network. Stay tuned to talkfor2.com on Twitter and Facebook for more. Reach out by emailing talkfor2cast@gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram at talkfor2pod, and talk about us across all social media platforms using the hashtag talkfor2. Everybody, we got James Monroe Eigelhart on Wednesday. For now, thanks again to Dan Tyminski. Signing off for Talk for Two, I'm Matt Bailey, reminding everyone out there to keep talking for two.
You can hear more show business interviews with the stars at talkfor2.com.